Hey everyone, it's Amber from The Sensible Mama, and today's video is gonna be a story time. So I would suggest grabbing a snack, maybe grabbing some coffee. We're just gonna chit chat today. This story is going to be an interesting one because it's not about me, at least not to start with. Actually, it's sort of about me to start with, but then it quickly transitions to being mostly about someone else, and then we'll bring it back around. It starts with me almost hitting someone with my car. So there's that. But where we're gonna be going today, as you probably saw from the title, is talking about perseverance and persistence, and why this is one of those topics that I think every mom could just hear a little bit of encouragement about. So that's what I'm gonna be doing today. It was probably around this time last year when I almost hit someone with my car. Now, I was obeying all the laws, I was driving safely, I was not texting, I was not listening to music, I wasn't shouting at my kids in the back seat, I was doing everything correctly. However, there was someone walking in the middle of the road on a very curvy road through my neighborhood, so that I came around a curve and there was someone walking in the middle of the road, and I had to slam on my brakes and veer around him so as to not hit him. And it was a very startling experience for both me and for him. But when I got past him, I realized that there was something off. There was something not right about what everything had kind of happened in such a flash. I hadn't really registered everything in the moment. So I stop and I look in my rearview mirror thinking maybe should I get out and just make sure he's okay. I watch him in the rearview mirror for a minute and I realize he's walking, he's fine, but I notice that he is walking with his body almost parallel to the ground. So he was hinged over at the hips and his back was completely flat and he was walking that way. He had this huge sun hat on protecting his head and his shoulders from the sun, and he was power walking. I mean, arms swinging, and he was just going for it, but he was completely bent over. So I sat and I watched him for a minute, just wondering, like, okay, thinking back, did he look like that before I came around this corner? And eventually I realized, after sort of replaying it in my head, yes, he was. And as my brain started regaining sort of like just a grasp on reality, I remember that I've seen this guy before. He walks through my neighborhood a lot, and I had never paid a whole lot of attention to him because usually I am, hurrying, trying to get to work. I'm trying to get my kids to stop screaming at each other in the backseat, whatever it is. I just not have a lot of bandwidth to pay attention to people walking on the sidewalk. But of course, he got my attention this day because, again, he was in the middle of the road. So after making sure that he was fine, he was walking on his way, I kept on driving home. After that day, I kind of knew to start looking for him because I realized this is someone who is regularly walking in my neighborhood. And it got to where every morning when I was leaving for the warehouse, I would see him out walking, completely hunched over. And usually every day when I was coming home from the warehouse, at the end of the day, I would see him out walking again, still with that same big sun hat on, still completely hunched over. And it was very moving to me watching this person walking in a way that I was sure had to be extremely painful. I don't know if you've ever tried to bend over with your back completely flat and walk like that, but it hurts me, and I'm in good health and don't have back pain. I cannot imagine walking what has to be miles through my little neighborhood. It is miles, and it is uphill, downhill, kind of difficult terrain to get through. And I just remember sitting there in my car one day feeling so motivated and inspired by this guy, because every day he was out walking and he didn't seem to be getting any better. So every day he's out there walking, definitely in pain. And yet every day he came back again. He was never stopping. So I kept watching him. I kept just sort of looking for him every day that I would go for a walk. And one day, something really interesting happened. I came around a corner. He was on the sidewalk this time. And I noticed that day he was standing up just a little bit straighter. As he started being able to walk straighter and straighter, I noticed that he was less likely to sort of get off the path like he had that day that I almost hit him. So I realized that day that he had been in the road, he was probably in so much pain and had reached such a point of just delirium that he may not have even realized that he had stepped off of the sidewalk into the street. I don't know. But every day, as he started being able to stand up more and more and more, I noticed that he had a smile on his face when he was walking. He was walking faster. He was walking with more conviction. He was staying in his lane, staying right where he belonged. And there were so many days that I would just stop my car. I never wanted to make him self-conscious, so I never approached him. I never got near him and watched him, but I would park my car from a distance away and I would just watch him and just feel so much pride for this guy who would have had every excuse in the world to just stay home. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know his story. But I know that something very bad happened to this man's back or his body, and it caused what I'm sure he was told was permanent damage. And I think that's the thing that I keep reminiscing on in my own brain about this guy who I've thought way too much about for someone whose name I don't even know. I imagine that whatever happened to him that led him to be in this position, I can just imagine that someone told him that he would never walk again. Or at the very least that he would never walk the same again. And I think back to a lot of times in my own life where I have heard something similar. Not as traumatic as that, but things will never be the same again. Things will never be right again. You'll never be happy again. You'll never be this fulfilled again. There will be this permanent hole in your heart forever. And there have been a lot of times where I've believed that and I've walked away from it just being like, well, I guess that's it. So I've always been very inspired and encouraged and motivated by this guy who I knew has been out there every single day walking when someone told him that he would never be able to walk upright again. Now, the thing about watching this guy, I'm invested now, right? So I look for this guy every single day. And here's what I think is the most interesting part, and this is what I think is the pearl that most of us moms can really pull out of this story, is that these days, he's almost always walking almost all the way upright. He has a little bit of a hunch now, but if you didn't know that he had been walking horizontal to the ground, parallel to the ground last year, you may not even realize that there was anything wrong with the way that he walks. However, there are some days where I can see that the pain is back because he's a little bit more hunched over. He's wobbling on the road a little bit. His eyes are looking down instead of looking up. And I can tell it immediately as soon as I see him. But he's still out there walking. There have been very few days where the weather was nice that I haven't seen him out. I'm sure there are days that he says it's too much, I can't today. And that's okay. But the man is still out there every single day, for the most part, walking. Some days fully upright, and some days slumped over and just not doing it well that day. But he's doing it. And every time I look at him on those hard days, I think about my tough days as a mom, the days where I just want to throw in the towel and say, I'm not a good mom, I can't do this. Obviously, I can't walk away from my children, but I give up on trying to be a good mom. I give up on doing anything right because I can't. And that guy, every day that I see him, is just a reminder that however imperfectly I'm doing it, I'm getting up and I'm doing it. And on those days when I'm slumped over and my eyes are cast down at the ground, it may feel like I'm not getting anywhere. But I still am, because I'm still there doing it. I'm still doing it. And tomorrow, I may be looking at the ground again. Or maybe tomorrow, I'm going to be looking up again. And it's going to be a great day. And that just really inspires me when I think about that, because I think as moms, we're so easily defeated. And I think part of the reason why we are so easily defeated is because we're constantly bombarded with messages about what being a good mom looks like. You should do this, you shouldn't do that. And these things are constantly changing every day. We're constantly contradicting ourselves. One day screen time is the worst thing you can give to your kid, and the next day there's no proven, negative effects about screen time. In fact, it can be really helpful for them. There's just a million things that we hear as parents all the time, and it's very confusing, and we end up just feeling like, if that's what it has to look like to be a good mom, then I just can't. And we ascribe to ourselves these funny little names that we've made up, like hot mess mom and scummy mummy, and all these things that we say about ourselves, these self-deprecating things. When in reality, the hot mess mom, that's just That's just called mom. We're all hot mess moms. None of us here are perfect. None of us are walking up right every single day. None of us are doing it right every single day. But what's going to differentiate us is, are we going to be the moms who are going to get up every day and keep trying to be better? Or are we going to be the moms who just say, Again, no one is going to throw in the towel of being a mom. But how many of us are going to just decide it's not worth it to even try? I've felt that way a lot of days. I'm sure you guys have too. And I think that this really could apply to anything: starting a business, going back to school, trying to save your marriage, or deciding to end your marriage, walking away from something that's unhealthy in your life, or trying to do something that is really healthy but hard, like dieting or exercising and things like that. There's just a million things that this story can relate to, and it all goes back to this man who I almost hit with my car. Like a lot of these storytime videos, I don't really know what you're supposed to get out of this. I sometimes just feel like I need to share a story with you, and you will arrive where you're supposed to arrive after hearing it. And I fear putting too much of my own sort of punctuation mark on it will almost prevent you from being able to interpret it the way that you need to for yourself. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope that in some way this story time has inspired you, encouraged you, helped you make a decision that maybe you've been having a hard time making. Maybe it did nothing. I don't know. Sometimes these are a flop. But I wanted to share that with you because this guy has been on my heart for over a year now. Like I said, I'm deeply invested in his story. So, that said, I'm going to go ahead and go. Love ya. Mean it. Always. Mwah. And I'll see you in the next one.